through this evening, perhaps a few drier interludes at times. Windy for all with temperatures around 10 degrees Celsius. Turning drier across Northern Ireland this evening as the rain clears east, a few heavy showers moving in from the west, which could be accompanied by further strong and gusty winds. The wind and rain will continue to sweep eastwards overnight with blustery showers following into the northwest. A mild night for most. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello and welcome to GB News on your TV and on your digital radio. I'm Dawn Neeson, covering for the lovely Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. Mine, theirs and yours. Most importantly yours, by the way, not theirs. We'll be debating, discussing and at times disagreeing nicely. Joining me today, it's broadcaster Lizzie Cundy, looking gorgeous in pink, as you can see, and the political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson, looking nearly as gorgeous, shall we say. Before we get started, let's go to the latest news headlines.
Thank you, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's 4:01. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. An independent review into the London Fire Brigade has found the service to be institutionally misogynist and racist. Our national reporter, Theo Chikomba, is outside the LFB's headquarters for us. Theo, what more can you tell us about this new report?
Yes, Nazir Afzal, the former Crown Chief Prosecutor in the Northwest, and a team of 8, including himself, looked into the culture here at the London Fire Brigade, and they say it's institutionally racist and misogynistic. In the review, there are many accounts of bullying, racism and more. And just to give you an example, a Muslim man was constantly bullied about his religion and had bacon and sausages put in his coat pockets and a terrorist hotline sign posted in his locker. Now, in response to this, the Commissioner for the London Fire Brigade has accepted that the organisation is institutionally racist and misogynistic, and he has vowed change. Now, we also heard from managers who are saying we need more teeth to root out the staff who are causing problems in the workplace. And earlier today, Nazir Afzal, he was saying if staff feel that they're not safe at work, then neither are we.
Theo, thank you very much indeed. Well, Commissioner Andy Rowe has vowed to change the culture and he has also welcomed the recommendations made by the review.
We're going to conduct a 5-year case review, so we look back across all those cases, those terrible behaviours, those examples of bullying and harassment which have been considered before in AFB and put them back through that externally accredited process, and I do expect some people to be dismissed as a result. We will become the first service in the country to wear body-worn video cameras to ensure both the safety of our own staff and to reassure the public. So those are examples of what we're doing immediately.
At least 13 people are missing after a landslide in Italy. No deaths have been confirmed, according to the government there, but a number of people are feared to have been killed in the incident on the holiday island Ischia, which has been hit by heavy rain in recent days. Emergency services say they're continuing the search and rescue operation as buildings have been engulfed by the landslide. Train cleaners have voted to strike over pay in what would be the biggest industrial action in the industry. The Rail, Maritime and Transport Union say more than 1,000 of its members, working for several private contractors, backed the industrial action. Rail strikes by train drivers have been continuing today. More travel disruption is expected. Members of the ASLEF union across 11 train operators are walking out in a dispute over pay, meaning a significantly reduced service. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has hosted a food security summit with the Prime Ministers of Belgium, Poland and Lithuania and the President of Hungary today. It comes after President Zelensky has said 6 million people remain without electricity after a series of rocket attacks by Russia earlier this week. The Mayor of Ukraine, Vitaly Klitschko, says about 70% of households in the capital Kyiv still have no power. It comes as the United Nations calls for humanitarian aid for people in Ukraine who've been left without power following the Russian attacks. Well, British military intelligence says Russia's removing nuclear warheads from old cruise missiles before using them for attacks in Ukraine. The MOD says the move highlights Moscow's low stock of long-range missiles. England manager Gareth Southgate has played down boos from disappointed fans following their draw with the United States in the World Cup last night. It means the team missed out on a chance to secure a place in the last 16. Now, supporters at a fan zone in South London appeared unhappy by the result, throwing cups and spraying drinks. England will face Wales next. Wales need a victory to keep up any chance of making the knockout stages. Well, former England manager Sam Allardyce says he's hopeful England can go on to win the tournament.
There's enough experience in the backroom staff, the manager. There's enough experience in the squad now, having gone through 2 tournaments, that they've got the tools to win this competition. But Gareth needs to use the squad to its full potential, and that means, for me, quite a few changes for the next game.
And the Flashdance and Fame singer Irene Cara has passed away at the age of 63. Well, the Oscar and Grammy-winning musician, best known for singing and co-writing the song Flashdance. What a feeling. Her publicist announced her passing at her Florida home on Twitter earlier. The cause of death remains unknown. And this is GB News. We will bring you more as it happens through the evening. Now let's return to Dawn Neeson.
Hello, good afternoon. You're with me, Dawn Neeson, covering for Nana Akua on GB News, on TV and on digital radio. Well, it's nearly here, the big day where history could be made. No, not the football, silly. But tomorrow's a grand final of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Because for the first time in the programme's 20-year history, one of the venomous, creepy-crawly nasties could be crowned winner instead of an actual human being. Let's give this bottom-feeding, bottom-groping creature a name, shall we? How about, I don't know, Hancock? Because incredibly, after 3 weeks, 12 contestants and thousands of public votes, former Health Secretary Matt Hancock has made it through to the final four. Oh, come on, people, how is this even a thing? A man with a baby's face and a laugh so nerve-shredding it makes fingers down a blackboard sound like a relaxation tape, even if the fingers in question are owned by Edward Scissorhands. And there are viewers have been won over by this. I mean, really? More of you have voted for this creature to eat anus than voted to elect Rishi Sunak PM. What an insane country we have become, with very short memories. How does munching a kangaroo's willy, I said willy live on telly, and cleaning a camp dunny make Hancock's COVID pandemic behaviour excusable? As Health Secretary, he was responsible for sending elderly hospital patients with COVID back to care homes. 32,154 of them died, alone and terrified because loved ones were banned from saying goodbye. And as if that wasn't quite bad enough, he also barred families from attending the subsequent funerals. How can any of us forget the awful sight of that son being physically dragged away from confronting his sobbing mum at his dad's crematorium service? I know I can't. Then there's the dodgy PPE deals. He oversaw that, remember too, a subject that's only recently reared its ugly head again, with Tory peer Michelle Mone being investigated for a, checks notes, £200 million contract that saw 25 million of taxpayers' money mysteriously end up in her family's offshore trust. Matt Hancock created the VIP PPE lane that allowed this to happen. He also, by the way, awarded a contract to the landlord of his local pub, ironically called the Cock Inn. Which brings us very neatly to Slug Boy's mistress. An affair exposed by a video so nasty, most of us will be in therapy for years. It's not just the horrific teenage level of heavy petting and snogging the married dad had inflicted on us, though, is it? It's the fact that he was breaking every damn one of the nonsensical lockdown rules he inflicted on us. Look, of course, he wasn't alone. His defence will always be that he was following the science. Science dictated by the Brothers Grimm, Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty and Chief Scientific Advisor Patrick Vallance. Remember them? But never forget, those two were told to come up with the worst case scenario by the then Health Secretary, Matt Hancock. Neither he nor Boris Johnson had to do any of what the science said. They were the blokes in charge of the asylum. But they were so intent on looking after their own backsides, they didn't care about imprisoning us in our own homes, shutting down the economy for 2 years, or turning the NHS into the National COVID Service. Now, that's coming home to roost, though, isn't it? Thousands more condemned to death with undiagnosed cancer and heart disease, highest taxes for 70 years, kids' education ruined, and millions with mental health issues they'll never recover from. And now this man is prime-time entertainment. Women are even confessing to fancying him. I mean, girls, come on. Look, God give me strength. Bookies say Hancock will be out of the jungle tonight, with the only female left, that's Lioness Jill Scott, come on girl, favourite to win Sunday's final. Hancock himself says he went onto the show to promote dyslexia and demonstrate that politicians are just ordinary people like the rest of us. Well, unless it's been very carefully edited, he's mentioned dyslexia precisely once. As with everything Hancock does, this is all about him. He wants to be that celebrity. Swallowing the crud he's had in his gob for the past 3 weeks is nothing compared to what he expects us to swallow. And shockingly, we have. Hancock's fee is £400,000. Money for old rope. Or should that be money for old grope? Now, before we get stuck into that debate, man, Hancock, what's not to like debating, huh? Here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? The government is facing increased pressure to find a solution to the migrant crisis. According to the Office for National Statistics, net migration has reached record highs, with more than 500,000 people arriving in the UK over the last year. That's the highest figure since World War II. So, can the Tories get a handle on the crisis? Can anyone? At 16:50, it's Royal Roundup with former Royal correspondent and my former work colleague, Charles Ray. He'll be in the studio to give us all the latest from behind the palace walls. Interesting gossip coming up there, I can tell you. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are heading to Boston to undertake several royal engagements, as Prince Harry and Meghan, oh yes, them again, it's always them, gear up to accept a humanitarian award for calling out structural racism in the royal family. Nice. And then at 5, it's this week's A Difficult Conversation. Former Chelsea player Gavin Peacock will be in the studio to talk about his life as a professional footballer before changing direction to become a Christian minister. Gavin has shown how important his faith is, especially with the beautiful game, which has raised serious questions during the World Cup. You won't want to miss what he's got to say on that one. That's coming up in the next hour. So tell me what you think on everything we're discussing by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get cracking, shall we? It's Saturday afternoon. We're all here watching us, and it's welcome to my panel. Broadcaster and journalist Lizzie Cundy, looking absolutely gorgeous in pink. It's a shame you can't see her legs. She looks really, really stunning. Some bloke. The political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson, who is also very lovely.
I wish I'd worn pink.
And has nice legs too. You can't see them. Look, hello, welcome to you both. Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you, Don.
Cold, grey Saturday afternoon. First, I want to discuss the story I was just talking about. Matt Hancock in the jungle. Now, I know we should be talking about the serious stuff going on in the world, etc., etc. There's a lot of it. But this has been one of the most popular series of I'm a Celebrity. It's been going for 20 years, can you believe that? One of the viewing figures are through the roof. Matt Hancock is in it. Matt Hancock was meant to be in it for a short period of time. No one got the memo on that one. The final is tomorrow night. Millions of people are going to tune in. And he is currently, the last time I checked, 3rd favourite to win. What do we make of this? I mean, you're both looking at me like I've gone completely mad. I'm talking
Is this possible?
Well, actually, even more mad than normal. I'm talking about I'm a Celebrity. Come on, who wants to go first on this one? Matt Hancock.
Well, what can I say?
Go, girl.
Who would have thought it? Him eating kangaroo testicles and the whole nation forgets all what he has done with COVID. I certainly haven't. I think it's called jungle washing. So we can see, so it's like he's brainwashed us all, because he's done all these trials, he's done them very well, he's been like James Bond, won all the stars.
Hold on. You mentioned James Bond.
Well, he has. He's had no fear.
And Hancock in the same sentence.
Well, I'm sorry, he was fearless, going in with snakes, got bit by a scorpion.
He's worked in politics for decades, Lizzie.
Well, I know, but I am just saying, he won the stars. And I've been in a couple of these sort of reality shows, and what the viewers watch is what goes on in the show, and sadly not what's gone out of the show. But let me tell you, I'm not happy. I don't want him in the final. And, an MP, the core of their job is service to the community, the country, and not prattling around a jungle eating kangaroos' testicles. I'm sorry. It really is wrong, and I think he should give his fee to the nurses or a charity, because we haven't mentioned, as you said, dyslexia. He said he was going in there to make a big thing of I've not heard him mention it, maybe once or twice, possibly.
He's mentioned it twice.
Twice? Oh, marvellous, in 2 weeks, that's
exactly. And what he should do, Liz is absolutely right, that if he had any honour, he would give the entire fee to a dyslexia charity.
Yeah.
That's what he went in there for, that's what he should do. What I think seems to have happened is that we were all voting furiously for him to do the trials right at the beginning. I know that I was on the phone there going for me sort of 5 votes and stuff like that. So on the basis of that, he did do, Liz is quite right, he did do them well. I mean, he actually went into them quite bravely. And I think as a result of that, he won over the audience in that sense, who forgot then about his misdemeanours of the past. He shouldn't be there in the first place. He should be attending to his duties. He quite clearly is going to give up politics. He's looking for a career in showbiz.
Politics given him up?
Well, and politics.
I think we saw that, though, didn't we, when Rishi became Prime Minister and just totally blanked him and walked past.
Yeah.
And that moment, you know, his political career is no more. And he's there making and rebranding Matt Hancock. He seems more like David Brent to me, you know, that character.
Yes, Matt Hancock entertainer now.
Yes, but it is the Matt Hancock show now, and I think, you know, for those campmates, though, all they want to do is eat, so it's great for him to do the trials and win it all, because they're starving and it's about survival. But let's not forget, I couldn't go to my friend's funeral. All of this, what happened throughout COVID, I had to say goodbye to a friend on FaceTime. So many others went through so much more than I did, but I remember, and it still hurts.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I mean, we have remarkably short memories. I completely understand, Lizzie, what you're saying about we're actually judging him on the man, using that term loosely, we are seeing in the jungle rather than the politician we witnessed for the last 3 years. But, I mean, his constituents, you're a political journalist, what must his constituents think? He's still on the salary of £84,000 a year.
Yep.
You know, his constituents are going through the same financial nightmare we're all going through, and he's getting nearly £500,000
and they're
punching him out on
furious.
telly.
Even his local vicar wants him out. So there's no forgiveness there. So, no, they're absolutely furious he's done what he's done. At the moment, I don't think he'll be able to stand at the next election because he's lost the Conservative whip. On the basis of that, if he carries on without the whip, there's no way he can stand anyway. I'm not sure he cares. I think he's rather given up. And I'd like to have seen the campmates grill him a bit more about the whole COVID history and what had happened, about, you know, how he released people from hospitals into care homes without testing. As you just pointed out, that killed 32,000 people.
I think, people have criticised my friend Boy George, and he did stand up and say, in the end, how he felt, because others were two-faced.
We have to. Right. Well, in any case, I've had to shut them up. They're going on too much. But it's a passionate subject. You're with me, Dawn Neeson. I'm standing in for Nana Akua on GB News, on TV and digital radio. After the break, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? According to the Office for National Statistics, net migration has reached record highs, with more than 500,000 people arriving in the UK over the last year. So can the Tories get a grip on this crisis? Can anyone? Send us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, and tell us what you think. You can also tweet GB News, and there's a poll up right now asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? Cast your vote now. I know you care about this one. First, it's the weather forecast.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking very unsettled as outbreaks of rain and brisk winds move eastwards. Let's take a look at the details. A wet evening to come across southwest England. The rain moving east will be heavy at times, which could lead to some localised flooding. Windy too, with gales around the coasts. Cloudy skies across southeast England with outbreaks of rain moving in from the west. The rain could turn heavy at times, especially later. Heavy rain is expected across southern Wales this evening, leading to the risk of flooding. Strong southerly winds continuing, but on the mild side. A cloudy evening across the Midlands with an increasing risk of rain, the wind also picking up for many. Mild for the time of year, with temperatures generally still in double figures. A wet end to the day across northern England as heavy bursts of rain continue to move in from the west. Winds picking up, these brisk over the hills, temperatures around 10 degrees Celsius. Further heavy rain for southern parts of Scotland in particular through this evening, perhaps a few drier interludes at times. Windy for all, with temperatures around 10 degrees Celsius. Turning drier across Northern Ireland this evening as the rain clears east, a few heavy showers moving in from the west, which could be accompanied by further strong and gusty winds. The wind and rain will continue to sweep eastwards overnight, with blustery showers following into the northwest. A mild night for most. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi, you're with Dawn Neeson. I'm standing in today for the lovely Nana Akua, who's having a well-deserved rest, on GB News, on TV and on digital radio. It's time for the Great British Debate. I'm asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? The government is facing increased pressure to find a solution to the migrant crisis. This comes as MPs took Home Secretary Suella Braverman to task this week during a Home Affairs committee, where she admitted the government had failed to control its borders. Read clueless, blaming migrants, people smugglers, the Home Office, Uncle Tom Cobley, anyone. Inefficiency for chaos at the Manston Processing Centre in Kent. The Office for National Statistics reveal over 40,000 people have arrived via small boats this year. The net migration in the year to June 2022 reached more than 500,000. This level is 175,000 above the record high of 329,000, keep up, lots of figures, during the refugee crisis back in 2015. Out of 500,000, nearly 20% are overseas student dependents, a figure which has increased sevenfold in 3 years. So, with the next general election fast approaching and no signs of the migrant crisis improving, for the Great British Debate, I'm asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? I'm joined by Director of Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe. Hello, Stephen. Hi, you can see you there looking absolutely lovely curtains, by the way. So, Stephen,
Thank you.
it's dark and grim outside, I don't blame, full of curtains. Is it too late? Can the Tories do anything? Can anyone do anything?
Well, the Conservative Party certainly could do some things, without a doubt. For example, they could pull out of the European Court of Human Rights, and that would then give them the opportunity to deal with up to at least 100,000 of those asylum applicants that are currently being assessed at the moment. And most of the asylum applicants don't fall within the category of the Human Rights Convention. Most of them fall within the ECHR or the government's own discretionary rules. So they could do something about that. If we're out of the ECHR, then they could not do with Rwanda. The Rwanda policy would have gone through straight away without having to deal with the court cases going on. Abolishing of the Modern Slavery Act, or at least amending it so that people from Albania who were coming over in droves couldn't make the claim. But the reality is, I think most people, particularly those in the northern constituencies that voted Brexit and the Red Wall, have become fed up with the Conservative Party, don't believe that they will ever manage immigration into this country. And I think, to be honest, they will probably lose the election on the back of that.
But do you think, I mean, what's the Labour... OK, the only real alternative we seem to have at the moment is the Labour Party. So what have the Labour Party said is their solution to this problem?
Oh, let's be honest about it. The Labour Party began this process in 2001, 2 and 3 were amongst the highest years that we ever had with asylum applications. I think 2012 we had 189,000 who came across the borders just on asylum. And that was Tony Blair's group of people who believed that they should scour the earth and bring as many immigrants into the country to rub the faces of the right in diversity. So we can't really trust the Labour Party, but the Labour Party is now under Keir Starmer trying to use soft words and nice language to say that they can manage it. But the reality for both political parties is this. Whilst they are increasing the numbers of migrants coming into this country through asylum, they're also allowing huge numbers to come in for work. The cost to the UK exchequer is now between 8 to 10 billion a year. And we've got problems in housing, hospitals, schools, roads, all of them are increasingly problematic. And whichever government comes in will have to consider how they deal with those costs. And immigration, controlling it, would be one of the key solutions to it. But I don't think they have the spirit or the heart for it.
Right, OK, Stephen, thank you. Stay with us for now, because I'm also joined by international human rights lawyer David Hay. David, hello, welcome to the show. No curtains for you, quite disappointing. I was looking forward to competition there. Right, David, have the Tories lost the plot, if they even had a plot, and what needs to be done? We all know something needs to be done, but can the Tories do it? What needs to happen?
Well, I think a good way to start is if we look at their 2019 election manifesto, page 20, right at the top, fix our immigration system, a statement that they made. And then you look at the other statements that they made, that they would fix the immigration system, that they would be fewer immigrants and they would control the borders. All these are things which they said in 2019 they would do. And obviously a few weeks ago, we saw the Home Secretary say that effectively the asylum and the migrant system is broken. Whilst they've been in charge. So, it's never too late to fix the problem. It's one that does need fixing. And it's certainly not a new one. We're an island, and we've always been an island. Immigration and asylum seekers, they've always been there in one way or another. So it's something that can be done. The question, I think, really is whether the Tories are capable of doing it. And I, from my perspective, don't think they are.
So, but I mean, the $64,000 question here, everybody watching and listening this afternoon is, if the Tories don't know what the answer is, and Labour don't really know what the answer is, what is the answer? Has any country in Europe actually managed to solve this problem?
I think it is solvable. I mean, if you look at other countries that are islands, if you look at places like Australia, for example, the immigration is a lot more controlled there. So it's not a difficult problem to solve. It is a problem that needs solving, but it's not just one policy about Rwanda or giving more money to France to control the borders there. There needs to be a full review of the whole immigration system, and as obviously part of that, asylum seekers and the illegal migrant issue that we're seeing as well. But that's just not happening, and that's not also been helped by the fact of the ever-changing prime ministers, home secretaries. They were abolishing the Human Rights Act, then introducing the Bill of Rights, then that got stalled, and then they're bringing that back. And they've effectively got 2 years left. It's highly unlikely that any of this new legislation is going to get through unless they treat it as effectively a migrant emergency. But all we're seeing is a never-ending story of complete incompetence from a Home Office that's not fit for purpose when it comes to immigration and asylum.
Right. OK. Let's bring our Stephen back into this conversation. So we've got a debate. There's 3 of us looking amazing on screen. So thank you both for
three good-looking people there.
These aren't my curtains, by the way. I'm just so now Australia, right? OK. Throw this out there, right? Rwanda doesn't seem to be one that's going to take off. Australia did use that, didn't they? They did start putting migrants on an offshore processing centre to solve this problem, and it did stop the illegal boats overnight. So, gentlemen, I'm going to come to you first, Stephen. Is that something that we maybe should be concentrating on? Anything that's got to be better than the hotels?
Well, we can't cope with the hotels anymore. There's over 600 hotels being used. And if you look at net migration, we've had 3.2 million people net migration since 2010. That's the city the size of Newcastle upon Tyne every year for the last 12 years. So we have to do something. And we could do something like Australia, as David has said, but unfortunately we're held back by the European Court of Human Rights and our membership of that and the fact that we've imposed that in laws. So first and foremost, we have to remove ourselves from that and abolish it. Once we have that, we then can look at other countries and other areas to do so and other options. We could put large ships offshore if we wanted to. But that particular legislation is holding us back because we don't have the freedom as a nation as Australia did. There are other countries like Denmark and Sweden that have made massive reductions on the people coming in because of their benefits system, but they too are held back because of the membership of the European Courts of Human Rights and our Refugee Convention. And where I finally agree with this is we do need an international convention to change the rules on the Refugee Convention.
David, just bringing you back into this now, how important is the European Court of Human Rights in this? I mean, from memory, the plane that was loaded with people to take off to Rwanda, there's sort of like pretty much 98 people on that plane were got off by the UK courts, and only one person had to go to the European Court of Human Rights. So is that really such an important thing in this issue, the European Court of Human Rights?
I think it's certainly, certainly from the evidence we've seen, that it did obviously cause an issue in the Rwanda in the Rwanda policy. But what we then saw was that shortly thereafter, the government issuing statements saying about the Bill of Rights, and that they would effectively have a kind of a 1 foot in the European Court of Human Rights, 1 foot out approach, where certain things they would follow, certain things they wouldn't. I don't know how that would work. And then obviously, as we know, Boris left, another Prime Minister came in, and everything changed. The Bill of Rights got stuck. So it's this very uncertain situation from a legal perspective at the moment, because the problems that we're getting are mostly because of the Human Rights Act, which is still in force, obviously, and as Stephen said, in terms of the European Court on Human Rights as well. But now the policy of the Tories, with the 2 years left to go, it's clear that none of that is going to change.
Right, brilliant. Unfortunately, we've got to leave it there, gentlemen. Again, it's a subject we could talk all afternoon about. So, Stephen Wolfe, Director of Centre of Migration and Economic, thank you very much. And David Haight, thank you very much for joining us too. A huge debate. Right, OK, you're with Dawn Neeson, standing in for Nana Akua on GB News, on TV and digital radio. After the break, we'll continue the great British debate. I'm asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Candy, and political editor at the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. At 5, it's this week's Difficult Conversation. We're having a lot of them this afternoon. Former Chelsea player Gavin Peacock will be in the studio to talk about his life on and off the pitch, from footballing legend to Christian minister. You won't want to miss his views in particular on the World Cup. First, it's the latest news headlines.
It's 4:34. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The head of the London Fire Brigade says firefighters who are found to have bullied colleagues or to have been racist, misogynistic or homophobic will be sacked. Andy Rose says there will be a zero-tolerance approach after an independent review found a toxic culture of racism and misogyny in the service. The report revealed accounts from a black firefighter who had a noose placed by his locker, women being groped and people having their helmets filled with urine. The review was commissioned after a trainee firefighter took his own life in 2020.
We're going to conduct a 5-year case review, so we look back across all those cases, those terrible behaviours, those examples of bullying and harassment, which have been considered before in AFB, and put them back through that externally accredited process. And I do expect some people to be dismissed as a result. We will become the first service in the country to wear body-worn video cameras to ensure both the safety of our own staff and to reassure the public. So those are examples of what we're doing immediately.
A woman has died and around 10 people are missing after a landslide in Italy. The incident happened on the holiday island Ischia, which has been hit by heavy rains in recent days. Emergency services say they're continuing the search and rescue operation as buildings have been engulfed by the landslide. Yellow weather warnings are in place for large parts of the UK. A warning by the Met Office for rain and strong winds will be affecting southern England, Wales and Scotland. The warnings in Wales and England will remain in place until 3 a.m. tomorrow. On TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. We'll be back with Dawn Neeson in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. You're with Dawn Neeson, covering for Nana Akua on GB News on digital radio. It's time for the great British debate. I'm asking, is it too late for the Tories, yes them, to solve the migrant crisis? Yes, that. The Office of National Statistics have revealed more than 40,000 people have arrived via small boats this year. Net migration in the year to June 2022 reached more than 500,000. This level is 175,000 above the record high of 329,000 during the refugee crisis back in 2015. Out of 504,000, nearly 20% over overseas student dependents, a figure which has increased sevenfold in 3 years. So, with the general election approaching in a couple of years and no signs of the migrant crisis disappearing, I'm asking the question, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? Now, I'm very, very curious to see what my panel make of this. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and the political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. Now, you've heard what our experts have to say on the matter. Can the Tories do anything? Is it too late? I mean, Nigel, you've been in politics your entire career. What's your take on this? Have the Tories messed up too much? Is it too late for them now?
No, it's not too late. It just is a matter of finding an answer that works. And I appreciate it's not easy. You take two different things. The 500,000 figure of official migration, not too worrying. 144,000 of them are Ukrainians who will probably go back when the war ends.
Of course.
Another 144,000 are Hong Kongers. That's probably a one-off. The rest are Afghans, 23,000 Afghans. So you park that one. The big problem, obviously, is cross-channel migration. And at the moment, while we have a system whereby you have to apply for asylum either at the border or within the country that you land in, that will draw people to Calais to cross the channel. If you can put them somewhere else and encourage them to go somewhere else, like proper refugee camps, every refugee starts out as an asylum seeker, although not all asylum seekers are refugees. But if you were processing them in the camps there for asylum, and that would be done by the UN Refugees Agency, and they could then decide where they want to go or actually who wants to have them. So it may well be, it already happens for America does this, Canada does it, Sweden, even Australia is taking people from these refugee camps and accepting them into their country. We could do the same. We only took two people last year under that system.
So why aren't we? Why haven't we done that?
It needs an awful lot of international cooperation. And what I found astonishing when Suella Braverman was before the Home Affairs Select Committee this week is she didn't have a clue.
No, she
could have she could have said.
She was caught out, wasn't she?
She
She could have said
completely,
what you've just said.
She could have said, we were trying this route. I'm not suggesting all that would be easy, but it needs a lot of cooperation. It's a global problem. You've got 100 million people on the move. But what you could have done is said, we are exploring ways of doing this. But what you've got to do, there's no point trying to sort of threaten Rwanda or something like that. You've got to try and take away the draw of the English Channel.
Yeah.
Migrants can go elsewhere and cross land borders. They can't do that with Britain. That's why they're doing the small boats. They used to get in the back of lorries. We've managed to stop that. But the only way is to stop them going there in the first place or wanting to. Therefore, we must have a safe route from a different place.
Lizzie, that makes sense, surely.
We have had 12 years of Tories not doing anything. It's all waffle, spin and talk and no action. And me, for one, I've had enough. We've got 42,000 illegal immigrants that have come over. We have to declare this a national security threat, and we can't do anything unless we leave the European Convention of Human Rights. We just can't. Look, Rwanda never got off the ground because we're being dictated by European judges. We have to take a leaf out of Australia's book where, zero illegals should come over or else they will not be allowed to resettle here in the UK. We have to be tough and mean it, but we've got to get rid of the European judges dictating to us, or else we can't get anything moving. And this is a disaster. And you know what? Tories don't deserve to be in power. I thought I'd never say this, but this this immigration crisis will lose them the election.
But that won't stop people
Sorry,
going...
Nigel. Do you think Labour would have a better alternative?
Well, Labour, I mean, I'm really sorry to say, as always, sit on the fence, soft language, don't say what they will do. I mean, they're great at giving advice when they're responsible for absolutely nothing. And I think I'm looking at an alternative because the Tories don't deserve to be wiped out. What is it? Net migration to the UK hit a new record high of 500,000. That's a huge amount of...
Nigel, I mean, obviously Lizzie is very angry. A lot of people listening and watching today will be very angry and very frustrated. And that leads to feelings and emotions boiling over and some sort of rhetoric that isn't very comfortable for any of us to hear. So, I mean, you can understand why people are angry. But, I mean, now, this winter, there will be people who are terrified to put their heating on, going to food banks, and their taxpayers' money is going to put people up in hotels where there is warmth and there is 3 meals a day. What would you say to someone watching and listening now about that situation and what is being done?
Well, I mean, right to be angry, but there again we have another problem that Suella Braverman could actually be solving nearer home, and that is to reduce the number of people waiting to get their asylum claims processed. These are the people waiting in hotels, many of them for a year, 2 years, up to 3 years, and it was 30,000 5 years ago. Now it's gone up to 100,000. That's because there aren't enough people processing these applications.
She has increased the number of people actually employed in the Home Office, hasn't she?
Yes.
She's doubled it. But...
Yep, she's done all those things, but you still have got this huge backlog of people who are stuck in hotels.
But the system's broken. The system is broken. We need to set up offshore processing centres.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, but we need to act on it.
So there's a safe route then to come. In the event that their asylum application is successful, that would give them a safe route to come here here and take away the temptation to try and cross the channel.
Lizzie, sorry, just quickly, what would you do with the people that are currently in the hotels?
Well, that's it. I mean, we're giving money to France, you know, to make minor adjustments. People care about the 40,000 that are already here and what to do. We have to process them and process them quickly.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Let's get moving instead of all this talk, spin, you know, waffle. Let's do something and act. We really do. And, you know, it's so dangerous. I mean, as you said about the hotels costing us millions, diseases breaking out and all sorts is going on. It's absolutely lawless.
But Rwanda would be more expensive. So Rwanda isn't... It would cost you 600,000 for every asylum seeker we sent to Rwanda to be processed. So that is not an answer.
But Rwanda
But Liz is absolutely right. If you can process them much more quickly, you get them out of the hotels and lower the costs.
Well, there's those that are there still 6 months and haven't even, no decision even been looked at.
£7 million a day for these hotels?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, we just have to... Wait, hold on. We have to... Gosh, you two are on fire today.
We're feisty.
Right, but this show is nothing without you and your views. So let's welcome one of our great British voices. This is your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. This hour, we are heading over to Bristol to talk with regular GB viewer Lee Harris. Hello, Lee. Oh, there you are.
Hi, Dawn.
Excellent. Hello, Lee. Welcome to the show. Right, Lee, you've heard what Lizzie and Nigel have had to say about immigration, and are the Tories toast because of it? What would you like to say?
Well, the question, is it too late to solve the migrant crisis, can be answered sort of two ways. I don't think it's practically too late to do something. I agree with what a lot of the panel have said and some of the contributors previously. It's not too late. But going by what we've seen so far, is it too late for the Tories to make a meaningful change before the next election? Probably yes, by going what we've seen so far. The only optimistic spin that I can put on this is 2 weeks is a long time in politics, and we've got 2 years until the next election. That's an epoch in politics. You know, I Googled what the definition of an epoch is, and that's actually longer than one of Robert Peston's questions. So genuinely, that's a huge amount of time. So I think most people understand that it's not an easy problem to resolve, but they also understand it's simply not sustainable to keep it how it is. But the situation is really bleak for the Conservatives. It's going to take a miracle for them to make any meaningful change to what's going on, what's happened so far. They've been watching the numbers increase over the years. Admittedly, I think they jumped massively from about 2019 onwards. But, you know, they've been watching this sort of evolve over the years, and they've done little or nothing to solve it. Maybe if we left the ECHR, started deporting people who arrived illegally, so we have a meaningful deterrent, because we've never had a meaningful deterrent yet, so we don't know whether that's going to work or not. We set up more processing centres in France, maybe even declare a state of emergency, bring the Navy in, possibly visibly patrol our waters. They've done none of this.
Right. Lee, unfortunately, I mean, we have to let... God, it's flying past this morning. Thank you so much for
so much to say.
I know, and by the sounds of it, you'd probably get something done at the same time, unlike some people we could mention. Thank you so much for joining us today,
Pleasure.
Lee, and enjoy the rest of the show. Right, today I'm asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? Are they toast? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. This is Syra. It is never too late to solve it, but I don't think they have the will to do so. Interesting. So far, no one has ever talked about a solution or even a programme to integrate migrants. There's a lot to integrate, isn't there? Meanwhile, Stephen says the Conservative Party should be ashamed of themselves for still not stopping illegal boat crossings from France or reducing legal immigration. It's far too late. Meanwhile, Mark says the current issues pale into insignificance compared to what's yet to come. Oh, God, Mark, that's not helping. The problem is far from being solved. Blimey. OK, well, there's also a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis? Currently, 70% of you say yes, it is too late, and just 30% are saying no. Not good news, is it? Right, so in any case, you're with Dawn Neeson, that's me, standing in for Nana Akua on GB News on TV and digital radio. After the break, it's Royal Roundup. Former Royal correspondent Charles Ray will be in the studio to give us all the latest gossip from behind the palace walls. We'll see you very shortly. Don't miss it.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, welcome back. You're with Dawn Neeson, standing in for Nana Akua on GB News, on TV and on digital radio. There's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are heading to Boston to undertake several royal engagements. That's not far away from Harry and Meghan, is it? Meanwhile, those two gear up to accept a humanitarian award for calling out structural racism in the royal family. Be an interesting dinner party conversation between the four of them, wouldn't it? Each Saturday, we give you the rundown on what's going on in those palace wars, though. I'm joined today, I'm delighted to say, by my former colleague, Charles Ray, to give us a rundown on what's going on. Right, OK, so we have two big talking points with the royals this week, don't we? We've got a new book on the Queen by Giles Brandreth.
Yep.
Very good friend of hers. And
very good friend of Prince Philip, but also a friend of the Queen, and very well connected.
Should we start with that? Because I mean, the Mail are doing an adaptation of this book. It's on sale now, I think.
It's on sale in a week or so.
Perfect Christmas gift. So I I was shocked. I read the bit in the Mail today, and I was shocked that the Queen actually had bone cancer.
Well, she had bone cancer. But that's not what she died from. It's still the official version of her death is old age. But the bone cancer that she had just made her feel very tired. So we've now got the explanation as to why she was cancelling quite a few of the engagements that she was doing. And she was very tired, and her doctors advised her not to go to various functions and events that she was due to go to. And now we know the reason why, because, you know, she didn't want to let people down, but she realised that she just couldn't do it. And I think she did very, very well right up to the end.
Oh, amazing. That last picture of Charles, sort of like standing there, sort of like bright-eyed, bushy towel, and we lost her not long after. Why didn't... I mean, look, you know, it sounds like a lovely book, and Giles was, as you say, a good friend of the family. Yeah. But, I mean, and all the time we've got this mobility issues. Why didn't they just come out and say, look, you know, Her Majesty is suffering from cancer. This is causing the mobility issues. Because it made all of us go, well, what's wrong? We want to know what's wrong.
Well, it's the royal family, and so they've still got this secrecy thing, and people like me have got to try and find out these secrets, and they keep it very quiet. The question is, why did she not have a mobility scooter? Well, we do know that she did have, a very, very nice mobility scooter, and finally she was using it. But there were certain things, I think we got to know quite a bit, given the doctors had said, things are not great, in the last day or so. And I think we got that sort of information, which I didn't expect we would get. But this is the royal family. They try to keep their cards very close to their chests.
They do, don't they? And this book also goes into the other big talking point about the sadly for the Queen, the last few years of her life with the Andrew. I'm not going to call him Prince Andrew. The Andrew affair. Now, the book says that she was quite tough on him.
Yes, and that makes that clear, because there was a point where people were saying, "Oh, the Queen, she's not doing very much. He's her favourite son." This favourite son scenario, I've never ever been able to. In the 30-odd years that I've covered the royal family, I've never been able to find out who said that he was her favourite son. Anyway, she had no compunction in stripping him of his HRH title and telling him he was not going to be involved in all the charities and the military organisations he was involved in. So, but as a sop, she had him escort her to the Duke of Edinburgh's memorial service, much to the chagrin of the rest of the family, and also to another event at which the royal family didn't think it was a great idea. But she was handing him, a sop, as simple as that, and he's never going to come back. Prince Charles... The King, sorry.
I know, I do it all the time, but you're an expert, come on.
Yeah, I'm an alleged expert. The King has made it quite clear to him, there's no way back, you're not going to be involved in anything. And no matter how hard he tries. He went off to Bahrain the other week,
But he came back, that's the problem.
He came back. But some say it was a holiday, others say he was paving the way to try and be some sort of trade ambassador. Between the West and the Arab countries, it's never going to happen.
No. Well, I don't think any of us want to say it. But talking of travelling, should we get on to the more controversial subject? It's not controversial. Kate and William are going to America.
It is. We have to just paint a little bit of background here. Now, Princess Diana, when she was alive, was a big, big favourite of the Americans. The whole of America loved her. Even to the extent of much more than we in Britain did, although we did love her. And so we've now got both of our sons are going to be in the same continent within a few days of each other. Now, Prince Harry and Meghan are going to be in New York on December the 6th to receive this stupid award, for fighting against structural racism in the royal family. I'm
sit on the fence a bit with that one.
I'm spitting
Go on.
feathers about it. I really am. So they're going to be there doing that with some sort of Kennedy Foundation, the Ripple of Hope. Meanwhile, in Boston, 200 miles away, with another arm of the Kennedy family, Prince William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, are going to be... William's going to be doing his Earthshot Prize giving, and Catherine is going to be doing a few charity events, including meeting younger children and everything else. Now, that's going to be within a few days of that. There's no suggestion at all that they're going to be together in any shape or form. Because as you quite rightly said earlier on, wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall with that conversation?
Wouldn't you?
And we've got the situation as well is that there's supposed to be some sort of Netflix documentary coming out sometime in December.
Yes.
That Meghan and Harry are taking part in. Although there was some suggestion that Harry wanted that delayed till after Christmas, but apparently that's going ahead. Then you've got Spare, the book, coming out on January the 10th. This is not going to be an easy ride for anybody in the royal family over the next 2 months.
They're not going to see each other, are they? When they're out
No, they're
there?
not, because Harry and Meghan have been invited to the Sandringham festivities. It looks like they're not going to turn up. Which is another snub against his father, the King. And it's going to be back to a traditional Sandringham Christmas, which we haven't had for 2 years because the Queen and COVID have affected it.
Which is nice. Let's end on a happy note for Christmas. Christmas at Sandringham. Thank you very much for coming in and joining us today, Charles. Right, you're with Dawn Neeson in for Nana Akua on GB News. More to come in the next hour, so stay with me. You're with Dawn Neeson, covering for Nana Akua on GBNews on TV and on digital radio. This hour, as the controversy around the World Cup continues, I'll be asking, should we be boycotting Qatari money? You'll be surprised how much of it's involved in your life without you knowing about it. Plus, I'll be testing my panel's knowledge on the events of the week in our quick-fire quiz. But first up, let's get the latest news headline.
Good afternoon. It is 5 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. An independent review into the London Fire Brigade has found the service to be institutionally misogynist and racist. Our national reporter, Theo Chikomba, is outside the LFB's headquarters for us. Theo, what more can you tell us about the detail in this new report?
Yes, Nazir Afzal, the former chief Crown prosecutor in the Northwest, he wrote a report including 7 other professionals. They spent 10 months looking into the culture of London Fire Brigade, and just a few examples in there. They had stories of women being groped in training exercises and having to run a daily gauntlet of sexist abuse, again frequently euphemised as banter. Many were routinely referred to as women or front bottom by colleagues, and more seriously, some were punched and attacked. In response, the Commissioner for the London Fire Brigade, he says from today it will be completely clear to all staff what behaviour isn't acceptable and what the consequences will be. Now, in the report, it does speak about what can be done next. Some of the managers saying we need more teeth because they know there are some staff who are not using their position correctly, and they want more power to be able to take some of those out. And Nazir Afzal today earlier saying if we're hearing stories like this and accounts from staff saying they're not safe, then neither are we.
Theo, thank you very much indeed. Theo Chikomba there reporting for us live from Southwark. Well, the Commissioner, Andy Rowe, has vowed to change the culture and has welcomed the recommendations made by the review.
We're going to conduct a 5-year case review, so we look back across all those cases, those terrible behaviours, those examples of bullying and harassment, which have been considered before in LFB, and put them back through that externally accredited process. And I do expect some people to be dismissed as a result. We will become the first service in the country to wear body-worn video cameras to ensure both the safety of our own staff and to reassure the public. So those are examples of what we're doing immediately.
A woman has died and around 10 people are still missing after a landslide in Italy. It happened on the holiday island Ischia, which has been hit by heavy rains recently. Buildings have been engulfed by the mudslides and dozens of homes remain cut off. Emergency services are continuing the search and rescue operation. Rail travel is being disrupted this weekend with warnings of further walkouts to come. Train drivers at 11 companies have been walking out in a long-running dispute over pay. Tomorrow they will refuse to work overtime in a separate row over terms and conditions. That may well cause more disruption for passengers. The General Secretary of ASLEF is due to meet the Transport Secretary Mark Harper next week to discuss the dispute. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has hosted a food security summit with the Prime Ministers of Belgium, Poland and Lithuania and the President of Hungary. Zelensky says approximately 6 million people in Ukraine are without electricity after a series of Russian attacks on the country's infrastructure this week. The mayor of Ukraine, Vitaly Klitschko, claims around 70% of households in Kyiv remain without power. It comes as the United Nations has called for humanitarian aid to be delivered to the people of Ukraine because they have been left without power following those attacks. And British military intelligence says Russia's removing nuclear warheads from old cruise missiles before using them for attacks in Ukraine. The MOD believes the move highlights Moscow's low stock of long-range missiles. England manager Gareth Southgate has played down boos from disappointed fans following their draw with the USA at the World Cup last night. It means England missed out on a chance to guarantee a place in the last 16. Supporters at a fan zone in South London appeared to be less than happy, throwing cups and spraying drinks. England will face Wales next. Wales need a victory to keep up any of their chances to make the knockout stages. The former England manager Sam Allardyce, though, says he's still hopeful England can win the tournament.
There's enough experience in the backroom staff, the manager. There's enough experience in the squad now, having gone through 2 tournaments, that they've got the tools to win this competition. But Gareth needs to use the squad to its full potential, and that means, for me, quite a few changes for the next game.
And Flashdance and fame singer Irene Cara has passed away at the age of 63. The Grammy-winning musician, Oscar-winning musician as well, is best known for singing and co-writing Flashdance, What a Feeling. Her publicist announced her passing in her Florida home on Twitter. The cause of her death remains unknown. And this is GB News. We will bring you more as it happens. But now, back to Dawn Neeson.
Hiya, I'm Dawn Neeson. I'm still with me for the next hour. It's broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. Coming up, it's my difficult conversation. Former Chelsea player Gavin Peacock. I'm taking my glass off. Don't look more intelligent than him. Former Chelsea player Gavin Peacock will be in the studio to talk about his life on and off the pitch, and he'll be telling about his journey from footballing legend to Christian minister. For the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to boycott the Qatari money? You'd be surprised how much, by the way, they invest in this country. Qatar has launched a review of its investments in the capital after London's Transport Authority banned Qatari tourism advertisements on buses and trains. Is it time to make a stand against the country's political beliefs given their human rights record? Should the country boycott Qatari money? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. Right. It's time for this week's difficult conversation, and today we are I'm thrilled to be speaking to the former professional footballer, now turned church minister, Gavin Peacock. Gavin had a professional football career spanning 18 years from the 80s to the early 2000s, most notably playing for Chelsea, boo, and West Ham, Newcastle, sorry, and Queen's Park Rangers. When Peacock retired from professional football, he became a sports pundit before going on to study theology and becoming a Christian minister. Last year, Gavin released an autobiography called A Greater Glory, talking about his life from football to serving God. Gavin's son, Jake Peacock, was born without a right hand, but that's not stopped him from fulfilling his dreams. And this is a message for all of us. Jake is a Muay Thai professional fighter, having won the North American Super Welterweight title. Gavin has shown how important his faith is, especially with the beautiful game, which has raised so many serious questions, hasn't it, during this World Cup. And I'm delighted, more than delighted, to say he joins me now in the studio. Welcome to the show, Gavin. Thank you so much for coming in today. Really appreciate it. A remarkable story, especially about your son as well. Very inspirational, which I know is your message here. However, I am actually going to have to ask about the big talking point, the World Cup. Can I just get your take on what is going on, the debate about human rights? Where do you stand on this whole World Cup in Qatar?
Well, it's a difficult one for sure, and there are questions to be asked about the human rights situation. But number one, I don't think the World Cup should be played in Qatar because it's splitting the season apart for too many countries.
Exactly, yeah,
on that level alone.
Yeah. As a football fan, that's really painful.
Yeah.
For my club, it's actually probably not such badness.
So that's very disturbing. So you've got to be a country, if you're going to host, that's able to host it at the right time of the year. In terms of the human rights situation and their particular beliefs, there are spheres of sovereignty. And if you're going to another country, you have to respect those particular customs and so on. So my particular take is there should be a certain respect of any fans that are going there of particular customs, right? The alcohol issue and that. If you don't, then don't go. And you know, we can all. There's been a lot of virtue signalling going on, and I think too much so with the taking of the knee and the armbands and so on. This is a stage to display the beautiful game for sure, but we can be a bit. I think sometimes ourselves we think, oh, you shouldn't go, and then we're watching it and we're making all sorts of comments, and so we can actually get into a position where we're acting holier than thou. So I think it's still going to be a great tournament. I think there are questions to be asked. I think the footballers should get on with playing football and shouldn't be used as pawns in it or actually making their own particular statements. And I've spoken to enough fans that have gone there and they just want to see the game played.
Yeah,
you know, the other side is actually detracting from it a little bit.
It is, as a football fan, it is a nuisance that we are discussing constantly the human rights issue. But the Qataris have human rights issues because of their faith. Now, you are a former footballer and now a man of faith yourself. So can you understand their take on, well, this is our faith, this is our religion, we have a right to do what we want to do in our country? So do you agree with that to a certain extent?
I don't agree with a lot of their human rights policies, absolutely. But what I am saying is that you have to have spheres of sovereignty in different countries. And so, you know, people can't just go to another country and impose themselves on that country straight away, especially if they're visitors. We would say the same thing about people moving into this country. If you come in as a migrant or as you're invited into our home as such, so then you abide by our rules. If you invited someone into your house, they would abide by your rules. They don't just come in and start moving the furniture around and doing what they want to do. So for a competition, a sporting competition like that, I think there needs to be maybe a certain grace given and a certain respect given as much as possible.
Now, you've actually been a commentator as well. I think 2008 Euros you commentated on, didn't you?
And the World Cup in 2006.
Yeah, and slightly less controversial locations. If you were still working as a commentator, would you have been happy to go to Qatar and work?
Yeah, I would have gone. I would have gone as a part of whatever commentary team I was working for, and I would have done the job. And I would have avoided speaking as much as possible about the political stuff.
So because we do have an issue with lots of people who all seem to be called Gary, by sort of like, you know, I'm doing this for the human rights and raising awareness of human rights.
And then taking all the money,
And taking all the money. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think you just need to exercise wisdom and you need to be able to... you need to be able to have a category in your mind is whether you're going there to work on the World Cup, beautiful game, biggest and best sporting occasion, in my view, in the world. And if you can do that and separate these, you know, I think, Dawn, nowadays, with social media, everyone's an expert.
Oh, yes.
Everyone's got an opinion, and everyone's a political expert as well as a sporting expert. So I think that maybe elevates people's opinion of themselves too much in their own mind. So I think for people that are going to do the job, concentrate on the football, and let's not make it all about politics because it will spoil it.
And as a former player, you obviously must have sympathy for the young players. Many of them are very, very young, aren't they? The young players out there, an amazing opportunity to play in the World Cup. I mean, you know, really, really, oh my God, this is it. This is the highlight. Could be the highlight of my entire career.
Yeah.
How do you think those young lads are? You've been in this situation. You've been a player. How are those young lads feeling now with all this political furore going on around them? Do I wear an armband? Do I take the knee? What do I do? How do I cope with it?
Well, that's exactly right. You know, it's too much. Or Jude Bellingham performed brilliantly in the first game. He wasn't the best the other day, but he's a young guy and he's built up after one game. He's just going to be one of the best midfielders in the world, and so you just see that pressure can weigh on someone, let alone the sort of pressure to actually make political statements. And these are young guys. These young guys haven't lived any life yet.
Do you think they should have been under pressure to wear an armband, to take the knee? Do you think that should have just been, we should have just ignored those issues and let them play football?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You shouldn't be taking the knee. You know, that should have been... A statement was made a long while ago about this, and it's gone way past that now. And it's lost its power. And it's actually annoying people, I think.
It's annoying many genuine fans. I mean, it's nothing to do with racism. It's just like you said, we just want to watch the football.
Yeah.
So do you think all this fuss, though, will detract from England, the young lads, England's chances of actually lifting that World Cup?
It could do. with England, it's always a barrel load of laughs and pressure and all the newspaper furore around it. So it could do. So for the sake of, our young players, for the sake of our young team, because we have got a talented young team, I think we need to ease off it a little bit and let them play. They've got a difficult game coming up, but tactically, they can still get through. They're still in a great position to get through. I remember the game against Scotland in the Euros last year. It was lacklustre, a bit similar to the game against the USA. Scotland raised their game, USA raised their game against England, and we still got through and got to the final. Gareth Southgate getting a little bit of stick, but he is a manager who's got us to the first major final since 1966, and he could still do very well with a talented England side. I would just say that I'd like to see maybe at certain stages just a little bit more adventurous nature, bringing on the likes of Phil Foden and Grealish and those real match winners. I thought they should have come on a bit earlier. Well, Foden didn't go on at all, and gain possession and control of the midfield back again.
Do you think we could win it this year?
We could. Well, whether we will or not is another thing, but we certainly have the talent in the side to do it. And there's been a lot of upsets already with, smaller teams beating bigger teams.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, Argentina, I mean, the Germans, I mean, all our pet favourites to hate in this country.
Yeah, and we've been a major final not that long ago as well. So those boys have had some experience going all the way to a final. So, I'm confident that England will do really well.
Fingers crossed. Well, let's talk about another inspirational young man, your son, Jake. Can you tell us a bit more about Jake and what he's been through and how he's doing now? Sure.
Well, Jake was born when I was at Newcastle United. At the end of the season, we got promotion to the Premier League, our first child, and my wife literally went into labour 2 weeks after the end of the season, and I was captain of the team. And anyway, it was a very difficult labour. 2 days it was, and he was eventually born, and the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck and all of this. And we just looked to see if it was a boy or a girl. Boy, and then he cried, and his arms went out to the side, and we saw that part of his right arm was missing. Oh. In those days, we only had one scan, so it was a complete shock to us. Sure. Anyway, Jake's developed. He started playing sports at a young age, and his mother put him into martial arts, into karate. Did really well. And at the time we left for Canada, he was 14, 15 years old, and he'd already developed to be an international level competitor. In Canada, he took up Muay Thai in the end, and he's Canada's #1, and he's got the North American super welterweight belt as well. And next year, he is competing in a tournament held in Calgary. That if he'd need to beat 3 guys to win the tournament. If he does, he wins a $100,000 contract with One Championship, which is the biggest fight promoter in the world.
And how old is he now?
Jake is 29 now, and so he owns his own gym. He's married to Krista. We have a little grandson, Charlie, by them, and another one on the way. And just I think Jake's story is a story of an amazing ability to overcome adversity and to think outside the box as well. And so that's what makes him a good coach in his gym, and that's what makes him somebody to look up to for anyone around.
A proper inspiration, to be very proud of him.
Yeah.
And talking of journeys, I hate that phrase, it's so TV reality show. But talking of journeys, your journey from footballer, which is not sometimes the cleanest cut of professions, to a man of faith. I mean, how difficult has that been? Because you discovered faith at quite a young age.
Yes.
What sort of reaction did you get from fellow players when you would go to church on a Sunday while they were off doing things that maybe weren't quite as clean cut as that, shall we say? Yeah,
well, I was 18 when I became a Christian, and I was at Queen's Park Rangers. We were a First Division team, Premier League team now. I became a Christian. I thought football was my God to begin with, and then I became a professional. And because football was my God, if I played well, I was really up. If I played bad, I was down. And then I went along to the local church one night. I went back to the minister's house after, where there was a youth meeting, and there were young people my age there that didn't have what I had, the car, the money, the fame, but they prayed and they knew Jesus Christ, and there was a joy they had that I didn't have. And then I heard the gospel, and I believed in Christ, and I was saved, soundly saved at 18. And I told the lads, literally, the next day as I went into the dressing room, and Peacock's one of those born-again Christians, and it was met with, I would say, a mixture of a little bit of mockery, because lads in the dressing room, if you wear a new jacket, a new tie, you know, anything like that, anything new, anything different. But then there was intrigue as well, and I think then they watched my life. And footballers are shrewd, you know, they'll see if, you know, your walk doesn't match your talk. And I had amazing opportunities over my career to talk to different players about my faith, about the Christian faith. And yeah, you'd be amazed at the different discussions I had. My wife and I hosted a London Christian footballers' Bible study at our house during the 1990s. Chris Powell, who's has been involved with the England setup himself, used to come to that as well. Wow. So, yeah, there was an influence there. And certainly in my book, I lay out, really, it's from the football pitch to pundit to pulpit. But that there's a greater glory in life than football fame and fortune.
Brilliant. And that's a great message. Unfortunately, Gavin, we have to leave it there. But thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
All the best for Jake with his competition and on being a granddad.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in. Coming up is the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it time to boycott Qatari money? Qatar has launched a review of its investments in the UK capital after London's Transport Authority banned Qatari tourism adverts on buses and trains. Is it time to make a stand against the country's political beliefs given their human rights record? First, let's go to a break.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hi, you're with Dawn Neeson, covering for Nana Akua on GB News, on TV and on digital radio. It's time for our Great British Debate. I feel like I need a drum roll for that, don't you? This hour, I'm asking, is it time to boycott Qatari money? Qatar has launched a review of its investments in the UK capital after London's Transport Authority banned the Qatari tourism advertisements on buses, taxis and on the underground. According to the reports, Qatar alone is the 10th largest landowner, read that again, the 10th largest landowner in the UK, owning properties such as Harrods and the Ritz. So, is it time to make a stand against the country's political beliefs given their human rights record? Earlier this year, the government issued a number of financial sanctions against Russia over Moscow's invasion in Ukraine. But Does the UK have the fiscal ability to outright ban other large investors to help build London's infrastructure? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to boycott Qatari money? I'm joined by political commentator Sam Dowler. Hello, Sam. There you are. I was wondering if you're going to pop up there on my screen, but there you are. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Sam. Right, I was absolutely stunned to realise how much money Qatar have invested in London. I mean, you know, they built the Shard, they own Canary Wharf. Sorry, this might sound a bit London-centric to other people, but the Qataris are now threatening to withdraw that money and invest it in other cities around the UK. Surely, Sam, given the human rights issues, and you're quite vocal on the whole, the gay rights, quite rightly so, surely it's time we did something definite to signal our disapproval of Qatari money and the human rights issues, and maybe not take so much money from them. What do you think?
Do you know what? I think if this was 5 years ago, then maybe we had a point. But we've had Brexit since then. We've had the Russia-Ukraine war since then. We are imposing sanctions on Russian oligarchs who've poured plenty of money into London, and also with our own cost of living crisis, we simply can't afford to lose the Qatari money. And of course, I am an LGBTQ advocate, and one of the reasons why this becomes such a massive deal is because of FIFA making such a massive deal themselves about LGBTQ rights and gay players, etc. And then obviously taking the Qataris' money, and then obviously the furore that's happened since then. I mean, this has been, I would say, a PR nightmare for Qatar, because all it has done is shine a light on their human rights abuses, and so to come back and to say that we should I would say, Dawn, it would be almost impossible for us to boycott their money. I mean, like you said, the Shard, Harrods. When I go into Harrods, they don't ask me to stop being so gay, for example. So I mean, what exactly would we be doing?
Well, that's interesting, because that's exactly what the advice was for gay fans travelling to Qatar, wasn't it? Can you just not be quite so gay for 3 weeks? I mean, quite what that actually means is another matter. But, I mean, surely by taking all this money, we are being as hypocritical as the various Garys, whom we know we're talking about here, and one Mr Beckham. So, I mean, we have to draw a line somewhere. We can't rant and rave about it and then just accept the money, can we?
Well, as I said, this was, this has been happening for years with Qatari money. I mean, you don't just build the Shard overnight. You don't just own Harrods overnight. This is, this is huge. And like I said, it's only come to the fore because of the World Cup that they fought so hard to get. We just don't have the money in this country, and since obviously we were sold the white elephant of Brexit, we don't have relations with relations with the EU anymore, and so Russia, EU, Qatari will send them off as well. I mean, we just can't do it. Of course, it's lovely to have our morals, but we've dug ourselves into a hole that would be impossible to get out of.
Morals and money, it's a dangerous combination. I'm also joined by social policy analyst Dr. Rakib Hussain. Hello, Rakib. Thank you so much for joining us today. What's your take on this? I mean, as I said to Sam just now, I was genuinely stunned at how much money is invested in London by the Qataris. Should we be accepting so much?
Unfortunately, Dawn, I just don't think that we really have a choice. This is the kind of economic orthodoxy that we've been promoting for decades. We have a hyper-financialised, intensely globalized economy, and that involves a great deal of foreign investment in London in particular. As you said, at the turn of the century, the Qatari royal family have been buying up a great deal of property in the capital. So now that they've gained such a foothold in our capital's economy, to then say we should boycott Qatari money, I just don't think that's not economically possible to do so.
And one of the interesting things they've promised, Rakib, is a bigger investment in green issues, in sort of like environmental issues to help us meet the targets we have set for ourselves. I mean, if we said no to that, then surely we would be fools to ourselves and fools to the planet.
Absolutely. I think that of course, there's discussions to be had in terms of how much foreign investment we should have in terms of property being bought up in London. There's a great deal of Qatari ownership in Westminster. And I think really interesting point to make here, Dawn, is that looking at the recent census figures, a great number of people have actually left Westminster, people who are living there locally, possibly because they simply can't afford to buy property there. And foreign investment in terms of wealthy foreign families building their property portfolio through London properties, that's definitely feeding into that. Now, of course, there'll be people who will be very concerned about Qatar's record when it comes to human rights. A great deal has been talked about that over the course of the World Cup. Qatar also has traditionally been accused of sponsoring Islamist extremism. There's been great concerns over its support for the Muslim Brotherhood, concerns over its relationship with Iran as well. But the reality is, Dawn, is that we've promoted this economic model where we've really wanted London to be this sort of financial centre. So then to say that, we don't want Qatari money because of its human rights record, unfortunately, we're not in the luxurious position to do that.
Fine. Sam, Sam, are you still there, my love? Let's bring you back in. Sam? Yes, you are. Right, OK, I've got both of you now. So, I mean, will we ever be in that situation, though, given what you've both been saying about this dependency, to ever stand on our own 2 feet financially? Sam?
I mean, how long is a piece of string? I mean, you could see. I mean, obviously that would be fantastic, but we certainly don't have the resources. I mean, like Qatar, exports. They're the #1 exporter of natural gas in the world. So, this is. I mean, I completely agree with Rakib. It's impossible to untangle what we have asked Qatar to tangle themselves up in. I mean, of course we disagree. Their human rights record was exactly the same 5 years when we were, going cap in hand. So, I mean, this is, the things that we could have controlled, such as Brexit, for example, that have been damaging on the economy.
Stop mentioning Brexit, Sam.
It hasn't. Nothing's come to fruition, unfortunately, Dawn. But what I'm saying is we don't. The Brexit has left us, and the pandemic has left us in a position whereby we cannot be turning our backs on Qatar because we don't like how they live their lives.
Rakib, one last word for you. I mean, what if we can't turn down their money? What message should we be giving to the Qataris?
Well, I think that when it comes to human rights abuses which have taken place in Qatar, especially in the build-up to the World Cup, I think that it's right for people in the UK to raise those issues, how members of the LGBT community are treated in Qatar. But I think that we can do that. But in terms of making that moral stance, but then also talking about rejecting Qatari finances, Qatari financial interests in London, unfortunately, I just think that would be a step too far, largely because of the economic model that we've promoted, especially in our capital.
Right, OK, well, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, Sam and Rakib, and have a lovely rest of your weekend. Right, OK, well, you're with Dawn Neeson, that's me. I'm covering for Nana Akua on GB News, on TV and digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue our great British debate. I'm asking, is it time to boycott Qatari money? I can't even say it anymore. You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Candy, and political editor at the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. But first, the latest news headlines.
It's 5:34. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The head of the London Fire Brigade says firefighters who are found to have bullied colleagues or been racist, misogynistic or homophobic will be sacked. Andy Rowe says there will be a zero-tolerance approach after an independent review found a toxic culture of racism and misogyny in the service. The report revealed accounts from a black firefighter who had a noose placed by his locker, women being groped and people having their helmets filled with urine. The review was commissioned after a trainee firefighter took his own life in 2020.
We're going to conduct a 5-year case review, so we look back across all those cases, those terrible behaviours, those examples of bullying and harassment, which have been considered before in AFB, and put them back through that externally accredited process. And I do expect some people to be dismissed as a result. We will become the first service in the country to wear body-worn video cameras to ensure both the safety of our own staff and to reassure the public. So those are examples of what we're doing immediately.
A woman's died and around 10 people are missing after heavy rainfall triggered landslides on the southern Italian island of Ischia this morning. The mudslide cut through a port town, engulfing buildings and sweeping cars into the sea. Dozens of people are reportedly stranded inside homes and hotels as rescuers continue to search for victims. And travel this weekend could be further affected by yellow weather warnings, which are in place for large parts of the UK. The Met Office says rain and strong winds will affect southern England, Wales and Scotland. The warnings in Wales and England will remain in place until 3 a.m. TV online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. We'll be back with Dawn Neeson in just a moment.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess I've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Dawn Neeson and this is GB News on your TV and your digital radio. It's time for our great British debate this hour. Come on, drum roll, drum roll. I'm asking, is it time to boycott Qatari money? Qatar has launched a review of its investments in London, and there's lots of them after the city's transport authority banned the Qatari tourism advertisements in nearly all forms of transport. According to the reports, Qatar alone is the 10th largest landowner in the UK, owning properties such as the Harrods, the Ritz, the Shard, the big pointy thing, Canary Wharf, Heathrow Airport. So is it time to make a stand against the country's political beliefs given their human rights record? So for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to boycott Qatari money? Let's see what our panel make of this one. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and the political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. Welcome back, the pair of you. Had a nice rest outside, haven't you?
Oh, it did. Nice cup of tea and chinwag.
So what do we think of this? I was genuinely shocked to read how much Qatar money has built London. Did you know that, Nigel?
No, it was news to me, and they've also got another 10 billion investment on the way.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point about this. I think that what your other two guests were saying is it comes down to, do you believe in doing the right thing or do you want the money? It really is as simple as that. So back in 1997, when Labour got in, the then Foreign Secretary, Robin Cook, he introduced an ethical foreign policy. And that took a bit of a knock with the invasion of Iraq, obviously, and everyone's forgotten about it. Now, if you want to be ethical, no, we don't take Qatari money, we don't take Saudi money, which means our defence industry would probably collapse. So it is a question, really, of whether we do the right thing, not deal with regimes that we disagree with, or we say, look, we're actually rather poor, we'll take money from whoever wants to give it to us.
As a former boss of mine once said, ethics, well, that's a place just north of Kent, isn't it? And I think he's not alone in that view. Lizzie, the bottom line is we can't afford, can we?
But no, we can't afford it. And it's a bit like closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. And as you said, Nigel, if we boycott Qatar, then we have to look at other Islamic states, such as Saudi, Turkey, the Emirates, so forth. Look, we had a big chance here to make a stance against their horrific, barbaric human rights abuses by not going to the World Cup. For the big football pundits to say, you know what, we're not going to go. Gary Lineker, Gary Neville, to say, you know what, we believe that what they do is so wrong to the gay community. Women, exactly, and the trans community. I mean, I've got a friend that was out there and actually had their head shaved. It's awful from the trans community by the police. And yes, and they used their Kleenex, take the makeup off and use that as evidence against them. Now, this is kept quiet. And, of course, people out there at the minute are saying, oh, we're having a great time, they're treating us fine. Well, of course they will. But we forget, life will go on after the World Cup. And people like Gary Lineker had a chance to really stand up and do something. But instead, he's over there saying, well, I will talk about it, the human rights, but I'm taking millions of pounds still and over there, presenting it. So it's very hypocritical. I'm very angry about it. I did a piece yesterday saying I think the footballers' wives and girlfriends are mad to go out to Qatar. I mean, they can't even take a selfie in case it's in front of a national building. They've got to watch where they dress. They can't, drink, all these other things. And I think someone should have stuck up for what's right.
And surely they should also be thinking about the women in Qatar who have to get permission from a male relative to do literally anything, even if that male relative is their 12-year-old son. Nigel, I know Claire, your lovely wife, she's not actually watching this.
No, she's boycotting it.
Even though she's a football fan.
Exactly. It's a bit of an irony. I don't really like football, but I do like watching England in big international competitions. So I only discovered when we were about to play Iran, and I said, oh, let's sit down and watch the game. And Claire wouldn't do it. No, she said, no, I'm boycotting the whole thing.
Wow. Well, I'm very much the same as your wife because I love football, as you know, Dawn. And I do not want to watch it. Those stadiums were built by those poor workers in the most horrific conditions. 6,500 deaths. Some weren't paid. Horrific conditions in the searing heat, and there were deaths. And it's unbelievable. The hypocrites like Gary Lineker and the Gary Nevilles of this world.
Yeah, and obviously one David Beckham Esquire as well.
Indeed, yeah. And FIFA are the real culprits for allowing it to be played there in the first place.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned the stadiums, Lizzie. I mean, Qatari only had one stadium before they won the World Cup, didn't they? I mean, we all know it's corrupt. But maybe us accepting Qatari blood money, it is blood money, as you mentioned, people die building those stadiums, make us as corrupt and hypocritical as FIFA and everyone called Gary.
Well,
at the end of the day, that's absolutely right.
Exactly.
If we accept the money, we are complicit.
And sadly, I think of all those poor lives that were lost building that stadium. It cost $200 billion to make, and half of majority of the workers said didn't get paid, horrific conditions, and sadly, many deaths.
I'd be very interested to see what does happen because this debate has been prompted by TfL banning Qatari adverts, and this is the same TfL part of Sadiq Khan's London, who have just extended the low emission zone to cover the whole of London. Qatari investment, you mentioned it earlier, Nigel, of £10 billion was due to help with the clean energy in London.
Yes, exactly.
It'd be very interesting to see whether Sadiq Khan actually says, right, OK, it's for the green energy thing, we'll have the money.
Sadiq says he wasn't part of this decision. It was taken by TfL, but I think the Qataris will punish London as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. And sadly, this is all about money, isn't it? And
isn't it?
It is. It's very sad, and I'm sorry. For me, this shows the very ugly side of the beautiful game, and I'm not watching the World Cup.
No, I must admit I'm not, and it was incredibly hard last night because the husband, who I can't stop watching it, to be fair, had it on in the corner of the room, and I was sort of like studiously working on my computer, and I could hear him swearing and falling asleep because it wasn't very exciting, thankfully. But yeah, so it's an interesting debate, but as I said, it is basically blood money we're talking about here, isn't it? Right, well, this show is nothing without you and your views. So let's welcome some of our great British voices. Now, this is your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. Today, I'm joined by 4 of my great British voices. Let's start with Dr. Seshni Mudlia from Milton Keynes. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
That's perfect, Dawn, and thank you for having me on. It's been absolutely wonderful to watch you tonight. Yes, you have pronounced it right.
Excellent, good. I normally can't pronounce my own name, so that's a vast improvement. So, what's your take on this one? I mean, you're quite clearly a woman, or you're identifying as a woman. What's your take on the whole Qatar World Cup and the fact that we take so much money from a regime that treats women not even as second-class citizens, as third-class citizens?
Dawn, I agree, and I think that we should boycott Qatari money for so many reasons. We need to take a stance against the Qatars for all that they, their beliefs and how they treat the LGBT, the gay community, women, and also migrant workers. We know that obviously, there's been a lot of abuse for migrant workers. Lots of them have lost their lives. We have the gay community. There's laws against homosexuals. And arrests have been made for being homosexual, for expressing your gender identity, and also forced conversion therapy. So for so many reasons, Dawn, I do think we should boycott Qatari money, even if we can't afford it. You've heard from Nigel, we need to do the right thing. And Gavin said that he didn't think that the Qatar should have held the World Cup. So, to be honest, I agree. We should never have had the World Cup in Qatar.
Thank you so much for that. Let's move on to Alan McNeely from Grimsby. But can we afford it, Alan? That's the $64,000 or several billion-dollar question here.
Afternoon, Dawn. The money's already here. We trade with people all across the world. Many of those regimes we don't like. But I think it would be incredibly hypocritical to criticise an independent country who has its own laws, its own customs, and its own way of doing things. We may not like that, and that's fine. But it's not for us to impose our values and our standards on someone else. You could argue that the World Cup being held in Qatar will expose the people of Qatar to a variety of different cultures. That in itself might help to change what's going on in Qatar. But for us to sit back and wave the moral flag, I find that absolutely ridiculous. Britain has made this same mistake.
Alan, let's hope they do take notice for the sake of the women and obviously the gay community that are out there. They have to be out there. Now we're going to hear from Brian Dugan, and you're calling us from Solihull. Brian, what would you like to say?
Hi, Dawn. How you doing? I agree with Lizzie and Nigel. I thought they summed it up perfectly. As much as it's completely abhorrent, sadly, the horse is bolted and the stable door is gone. The Qatari regime is morally and ethically repugnant, but we do business to it to an incredible degree that even surprised you. You know, they've already invested since 2017 £5 billion into the country. They've committed 10 billion more over the next 5 years. They are our 29th largest trading partner. And And we do business with them. To narrow it down merely to the narrative of football and a World Cup taking place in that country and people shouldn't be there, I think is missing the point entirely. We do business with them despite the abhorrent nature of the way they deal with migrant workers, with the LGBT plus community. We are up to our necks in it. And I think we don't have the economic headroom now to actually go back on the mistakes we've made thus far.
Right, fine. Thank you. And lastly, we're going to hear from John Reid, who is in Kidderminster. Hello, John. What would you like to say?
Yes, hello, Dawn. This is so much locking the door after the horse has bolted, isn't it? Absolutely classic. What do we do in this country? We take people's money, we continue, we use the money, we develop our country, nobody says a word. And then all of a sudden, somebody notices that, hey, you know, these people in the Middle East, they're not doing it quite the way we do it in England. So let's try and dominate them. Let's try and force our opinions on them. For me, your man earlier that spoke, Sam, was absolutely on the money. And I think it's way too late to start boycotting the money, even though it would be a lovely thing to do, perhaps. Would it? Maybe it would. I don't know. But it's too late to. We can't do it now. It's ridiculous.
Right, OK, well, thank you so much. I mean, thank you, all four of you. Pretty joined up thinking there from everyone, isn't there? Today, we're asking, is it time to boycott Qatari money? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Sam says, no, if you don't like Qatari culture, customs or laws, or if you have a problem with their religious beliefs, then nobody is forcing you to go there or take their Qatari money. But I use Heathrow Airport. They own 20% of that. I mean, meanwhile, David says, if governments only deal with the nice countries, there will be very few we deal with. Actually, that's a very fair point. Meanwhile, Wendy says, unfortunately, we do not have the natural resources to boycott Qatar. Well, gosh, it's a pretty unanimous decision there, isn't it? Unfortunately, we are, you know, we are as hypocritical as they come. We have to take their money. But now, fingers on buzzers.
OK.
It's time for our quick-fire quiz. It's the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories, and there are other stories, hitting the headlines right now. So let's hear those panel's buzzers first. Wait for it. Lizzie Cundy and political editor of the Sunday Mirror, Nigel Nelson. Now, just to give it a test, Lizzie, you got the pink one?
Yep, matches the outfit.
Yay!
What does the green match exactly? Right,
I'll wear green next time.
Now, the rules are, right, now remember, do not press your buzzers before I have finished the question. Full confession, I haven't even read these questions, so I haven't got a clue what's coming up here, so bear with me. Right, let's begin. Question one. Fingers up. Hold on, look, you either have them equidistant or just hovering over.
Both
of
you
the
OK,
we're
going to be fair.
Oh, dear, you can't get this.
No cheating.
Right, OK. Question one. Airports in the UK have hit the headlines this week, but why? Definite silence. OK, right. OK. Oh, no, sorry, it's multiple choice. Nobody said. Nobody said. Right, OK, but why? Airports have decided to get rid of the 100-millilitre liquid rule. They cut down on flights during the holiday season. They banned alcohol on long-haul flights. What?
It's a guess.
I don't even know who got that one first. Go on.
Well, I'd guess B.
I'm going for A.
A, right, there you go.
Oh,
pretty much a dead heat. They're getting rid of the 100ml liquid rule, which means I can drink more. Excellent. Right, this potential change is due to advancements in technology that allow passengers to be scanned for any hazardous materials. I'm going to skip this bit because I know your airport stories and they're not suitable for broadcast.
We can't.
Right,
Sorry.
Question two. Fingers back hovering. Mum, I know, I got the gist of this now. A mum was furious after paying an abnormal amount of money for 2 bags of pick and mix. But how much was it? Closest answer wins, OK?
What?
Shall I pretend I haven't seen?
Where is the multi-choice?
The answer.
Go on, Lizzie.
Sorry, £47. I read that. I haven't looked at the monitor at all.
No, she didn't look. I told you I am. There's a reason I haven't got a buzzer because I would have thrown it at myself by now. I'm rubbish.
£47?
£47 from Pick and Mix, blimey. But, you know, the first one was multiple choice, that one wasn't.
No.
Nobody tells me anything here. See, come back, Hannah, all is
That's a huge bag of...
That's a very big bag. The mother of two was distraught after buying 2 bags of Pick and Mix for her kids at Cardiff's Winter Wonderland. Yeah, you've been there. What is the most either of you pay for some sweets? Lizzie, you were at Winter Wonderland.
Oh, I know. I love Winter Wonderland. Oh, gosh. Well, you know what? I still like the penny sweets. That's how far I'm going back.
Yeah, I just can't think... I would
Rhubarb
have
and custard.
paid more than a couple of quid, I would have thought, for a pack of sweets. I would have, if someone said, have a Pick and Mix of £47, you'd say...
No, thank you. Yeah, pretty much no, thank you. Right, question 3. I have no idea what's coming with this one. Jack Grealish shares his age with the world's oldest dog.
Hey, I'll have a go too.
Go on, do you want to do it?
We'll do false.
False. The answer is false.
In my defence,
I think the quizmaster has not quite got the hang of this.
I mean, masterminds out on every level.
I've done rather well on this one, weirdly.
What the hell?
Well done.
Jack Grealish actually shares his age with the world's oldest cat, Flossie.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Who cares? Anyway, so they're both 26.
That's an unbelievable age.
Who writes these questions? What is the oldest pet you've ever owned? Don't go there, don't go. Go on, do you want
It was a tortoise, actually.
It was a tortoise.
Tortoise.
No, my tortoise escaped. So I've no idea what happened to that.
So it's pretty much what I'm going to do right now. In any case, on today's show, we've been asking, is it too late for the Tories to solve the migrant crisis, or me to get a quiz right, for that matter? According to our Twitter poll, 71% of you say yes and 29% of you say no. So thank you so much to my very, very patient panel today, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and political editor at the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. And they've joined me today. They've had endless patience. They even pretended that I got the quiz right at the end. But I didn't. Anyway, thank you at home for your company. Nana, and you'll be so glad to hear this one. Nana will be back at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Does she do buzzers tomorrow? Does Nana do buzzers?
I think she does the papers
No,
tomorrow.
At 4 p.m. tomorrow to discuss the top stories, no buzzers involved, with Conservative commentator Albie Amanakona and former Labour MP Stephen Pound. We were also joined by football legend Matt Letizia. You won't want to miss that. But now I'll leave you with the weather forecast.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking very unsettled as outbreaks of rain and brisk winds move eastwards.